Redraft ends, but Dynasty is life. I'm Theo Gremminger, and today I'm joined by Ray Garvin. This has been a long time coming. I had to get Ray in here. We're inching up towards the NFL Combine. It's starting to get very, very real in our prospect evaluations. Ray and I are going to drop a 2-round rookie mock draft. You're already following Ray Garvin at this point if you play Dynasty or if you play fantasy in general. But Ray, let everybody know what you're doing over at Destination Devi, what you're doing with the YouTube channel. What do you have going on this time of year?
Appreciate you for having me on, Theo. Yes, this has been a long time coming and really excited to do this show with you. For anybody out there who's not familiar with my content or my work, you can follow me on the X at RayGQue, that's QUE, and then on the YouTube channel, Ray Garvin NFL, all of my NFL draft, mock draft content on that channel. And then we've got an amazing team over at DD Fantasy Football, Scott Connor, Shane Manila, the Dynasty Theory crew. You can follow all of that work, DDFFB, DD Fantasy Football on YouTube. Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, and they're all great people because they've all been on Dynasty Life too. So it's like stamp of approval. Big shout out to Scott, Shane, all the stuff you guys put out. It's highly recommended. Everybody watching Dynasty Life already knows it. So let's get right into it. We were both down in Mobile. I think we both have a general idea of this class. Who's the most underrated player for you right now, Ray, where you're looking at people talking about the class continually and you're like, why doesn't this guy have more steam? Why is he ranked at this point in the draft? Maybe sort of a flag plant for you, but more of a surprise for you.
And for me, it's a player who had this player declared for the NFL draft last year, probably the RB1 in 2023. It's Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon. We got to see him in person. There were incredible running backs down in Mobile, but none of them look like Ollie Gordon. This truly looks like a guy that profiles as an NFL bell cow. He was dominant in his sophomore campaign. And Theo, what a lot of people don't realize about that season for Ollie Gordon is he had over 2,000 all-purpose yards while his offense was third in the country in pass attempts. This past year at Oklahoma State, it was an absolute mess. They didn't win a game in the Big 12, but the skill didn't evaporate. The talent didn't evaporate. And when you're built that way, 230 pounds, over 6 feet tall, like the NFL, they're not focused on some of the things that we are, like the talent and the tools and the traits. They don't just go away. So for me, one of the more underrated running backs or players for fantasy in this entire class, in my opinion, is Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I love it. We've been talking about Ollie Gordon since before the Senior Bowl, but the Senior Bowl was sort of like he reset his dynasty value. And just speaking to his size, like when you stand next to him, and I know, Ray, you're down on the field talking to a lot of players. When you stand next to Ollie Gordon, it was sort of like no difference physically than standing next to like Harold Fannin or one of these tight ends. Ollie Gordon he's easily 233 and a lean one. He could play at 240, and he's got all team wingspan, which kind of speaks to his ability as a receiver where people don't put enough credit. Like he could be the kind of guy that puts up enough as a receiver in the NFL that like pushes himself into like low end RB1 category just by being a good enough receiver that he stays on the field a number of downs.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And I always say, I've said this for years, there's a difference between running backs who can catch passes and running backs who can be deployed as pass catching weapons. Ollie Gordon, let's not get confused. He's the former, not the latter. He's not going to be deployed as a pass catching weapon, but he's also not the type of running back that I believe has to come off the field in 4-minute offenses, that has to come off the field in obvious passing down situations. He is capable, competent, and he showed that ability both years as the primary rusher for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I threw out a landing spot for Ollie Gordon that I think is reasonable, but would also get everybody very excited. 52 overall, Pittsburgh Steelers. Write it down in ink. Mike Tomlin gets a Le'Veon Bell-sized running back again. I could just see it now if he has a good enough combine, Ray, because I think a number of other running backs are going to go before that 52 range. It's going to be a unbelievable sort of reset draft for Dynasty at the running back position. You not only have high-end talent, but you also have incredible depth. I'm assuming your top 5 running backs are, in some order, Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, Kaleb Johnson, the two Ohio State backs. Is that correct?
Yeah, in some order, I would say that those are at least the top guys on the board. I'll be very honest with you, man. I've gone away from numerical rankings, especially this early in the process. To me, it's so fluid. It's still so incredibly early that things are going to shift. And for me this year, more than any year that I played fantasy football, situation matters. Hashtag that joint. Situation matters. I could have Quinshon Judkins as the RB5 right now, and then he gets drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. And for the 2025 season outlook, I've got to adjust. There's no way in hell I would draft him as RB5 at that point. So right now, there's a big cluster and a big tier of running backs kind of after that for me that I'm not going to make a determination on what number they are until they get drafted.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people that have this old mentality that I'm going to scout my way through it, I'm landing spot averse. Like, for certain players, I get it. Like, Brock Bowers could have landed wherever, and to a certain extent, Ashton Jeanty, if he lands in a quote unquote bad spot, he's going to nuke the running back ahead of him rather than himself having being in some sort of a split. But I agree with you. I think anybody who's sort of like not changing, slightly adjusting their rankings after the NFL draft is doing it really, really poorly. So we talked about the Big Five and Ollie Gordon. Is there another running back for you that you would put near that top five or similarly near Ollie Gordon, like right now without knowing landing spots? Maybe another guy that you're just very into the profile, Ray.
Yeah, let me give you two names, actually. Let me give you two names. One of those names is DJ Giddens, the running back out of Kansas State. A lot of times, Theo, these guys are out of sight, out of mind. DJ Giddens wasn't at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't there. So people aren't, it's not top of mind. And he played at Kansas State. So if you're not, hey, no shade to the Kansas viewers and listeners here, but he's not at one of these high-profile schools, right? One of these high-profile markets. DJ Giddens, and then we'll go to the SEC and talk about Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. I thought he was incredible all year. Physical, fast enough, great after contact. I think that's another one of those guys jockeying for one of the upper tier, running backs that is selected on day two in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But yeah, to your point about situation, and one of the things that I don't want to do, because there is a layer of scouting that has to be laid and that foundation set before the draft, because what we don't want to do is pull a Clyde Edwards-Helaire from 2020. Most people going into the 2020 draft cycle had him RB4 at best. It was Swift, it was Taylor, it was Dobbins, it was Akers, and then it was some combination of Clyde. Once he was the only running back taken in round one, landed on Kansas City, what we did is we took the RB5 and leapfrogged him up to RB1. That is where you've got to balance, right? You've got to balance the expectation level of the landing spot versus the talent of the player. That was a mistake that we made as a community, as a consensus. A lot of people made that mistake. So I'm not saying landing spot and draft capital are the end all be all, but with a class this loaded at the running back position, Theo, what the hell is the difference between a third round running back and a fifth round running back? There is no, the only difference is where they land in your evaluation of the projected opportunity they're going to receive in that landing spot. And that's where I want to focus a lot of time is, what does that opportunity look like for the player selected by that specific team?
Yeah, and Sampson's one that I've been on as well. I like seeing you on Giddens. I know that he's one of these guys that there's sort of a wide range of opinions on, but Sampson, we saw Jaylen Wright last year, Ray. Where are you at on Sampson versus Wright at this point in the process? And again, Wright absolutely helped himself at the combine. We already knew he was fast. Sampson was, in my opinion, kind of awesome this year for Tennessee.
Yeah, they're different. They're different. Jaylen Wright's claim to fame was that speed. He had that speed at that size. Sampson looks to me like a more complete running back and not just an athletic specimen. I do think he's a little better of a running back prospect than Jaylen Wright was.
Your QB1 in this class is?
Does it matter? Doesn't matter who my QB1 is. Right now, I think the best quarterback suited for NFL success off the rip is Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback out of Colorado. He's my QB1 at this point. What's that mean for fantasy? I think that is the better question. And Theo, when you're looking at these traditional pocket passers, if you're not putting up 4,000 yards, 30 plus touchdowns with no rushing upside, you just fall into a range of mid to a degree, stable and fine, but nothing spectacular. He has no rushing upside. Love Shedeur. He ain't running nowhere. He needs not run the ball at the next level. Now, his claim to fame and his superpowers, accuracy, precision, decision-making, his leadership, calmness under pressure, and hopefully going to a situation where he's not running around for his life behind a poor Colorado offensive line. He is my QB1 right now in this process and in this class, but I'm just telling you right now, man, there are a litany of veteran quarterbacks in the NFL that people may not like as much that I would probably prioritize over any of these quarterbacks in 2025.
And just throw it out there, JJ McCarthy or any of these three.
JJ. I mean, and that's not just saying that to be reactionary. You can look at all the data points, his athleticism. I know he didn't test, but he's far more athletic than any of these guys with his legs, arm. It would be JJ McCarthy. He'd be the 101 in this class. It wouldn't even be a debate.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that trade's out there for a lot of people. People love re-rolling picks. Shout out to Scott Connor on that. Love re-rolling picks. They love the newness of the rookie pick. But if we would have just gone back in time, it wasn't even close. Like Cam Ward emerged, Jackson Dart emerged, and Shedeur Sanders was never ahead of JJ McCarthy in this class. JJ entered the draft early, missed a year, sort of gets an NFL redshirt season. NFL Combine right around the corner, Ray. Every year we see guys who do amazing things athletically. The work that these players put in over the last month is insane for anybody who doesn't follow it. Last year, of course, we saw Xavier Worthy. Flashback in time 2 seasons ago, Anthony Richardson had one of the most impressive combines we've ever seen at the quarterback position. Give me a player, any position. Try to stick it to fantasy. You can go defense if you want, Ray, but give me a player that's so athletically gifted where people are going to say, oh my God, after the combine, this guy is going to shoot up boards, does something very, very special in Indianapolis.
Well, what do you mean? I can't talk about defensive linemen.
No, sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Off the edge. I mean, I know some IDP fans are listening, but no, in all seriousness, the name and the player that I will be glued to the TV when he runs, when he jumps, when he goes through the gauntlet is Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo. He's already got mile per hour GPS data tracking over 21 miles per hour. We got to see him up close and personal. He is all of 6'4.5", 250 pounds, and moves like a wide receiver. This dude, when you're just looking at some of his efficiency metrics and numbers, Theo, I'm gonna hit you over the head with this right now. I'm looking at him versus Tyler Warren, EPA per target or EPA per play, 0.69 for Elijah Arroyo, 0.48 for Tyler Warren. Yards per target, 9 for Warren, 12.6 for Elijah Arroyo. Success percentage, 68% for Arroyo, 64% for Tyler Warren. And I can just go down, catch rate over expected, Arroyo 5 times higher than that of Tyler Warren. This is a player. His explosive play percentage, 20.7%. Tyler Warren, 6.6. I'm not saying Arroyo is leaping Tyler Warren, who is my locked and loaded tight end 1, but I think coming out of the combine, this is a player who right now is not being mocked inside of round 1 of the NFL draft. But if he goes out there and does what I believe he will do, combined with the history of quality to great tight ends that have come out of the University of Miami transitioning to the NFL, it is a very easy path and world to see Elijah Arroyo not only shooting up NFL draft boards, but for those of us that participate in leagues where you get a premium for the tight end reception, he'll be somebody that people want.
Yeah, and we're sort of due to have a Miami tight end. It's sort of like the NFL as a cycle when we're showing our age a little bit on this one, Ray, but you go back to Jimmy Graham, Greg Olson, Jeremy Shockey, sort of the Kellen Winslow. The list goes on and on.
Bubba Franks was there. Come on.
It goes on and on and on. And it's funny because Mario Cristobal was actually saying this after the Senior Bowl. Like, no one was really surprised by this performance in the Miami room because they are saying this guy is this elite player. And Arroyo talked about how he sort of patterns himself after Sam Laporta. I mean, we've seen what athletically Sam Laporta can do on an NFL field. Love that one. Definitely you're going to hear a couple tight end names when Ray and I start dropping picks. I'll say for me, Savion Williams, I think might just light it up at the combine. TCU wide receiver, but also will play some running back. Incredible athlete, hit like 21 and a half miles per hour. All of his lifting numbers were incredible at TCU. Freaks list guy, Bruce Feldman's freaks list at the Athletic. He had Savion Williams pretty highly up there. Williams doesn't show up to the Senior Bowl. Jack Bech plays very, very well, his teammate. But Savion Williams, I think, will get that steam. People don't know what he is, but people will know he's very, very athletic. Your thoughts on Savion?
Theo, I love you. Love you. You're a
Thank you,
phenomenal host. You do your work. You're tremendous at this game that we play. But I can't vibe with Savion.
Come on.
I can't do it, Theo. He is the type of athlete that I would have 1,000% gravitated to 2-3 years ago. Jalen Reagor, Rondell Moore, these ultra athletic but positionalist players. If I were taking a TCU wide receiver, I mean, you could look at every metric outside of explosiveness, because I do agree with you. He should look great. He should light it up. He should run fast. But Jack Bech, in my opinion, is a better wide receiver prospect than Savion Williams. So I think for a player like Savion, it just depends on the cost. If you're telling me, Ray, dude, I'm taking him at the 401. I'm taking him at the 312. I'm not saying I'm taking Savion at the damn 202 here, Ray. I'm talking about, these are third, fourth round picks, which we know historically are just, they're crapshoots anyway. I want to bet on that athleticism, especially depending on what situation he lands in. Hell, no one thought Jordan Whittington would be anything coming out of Texas. And then he gets with the Rams and there was some opportunity. There were some bright spots. So I do think there's a world in which he can land in the right spot and use that athleticism to his benefit. But man, I've been burned by damn TCU wide receivers so much. Damn, Theo, I'm nervous about it. And I want a receiver that I feel like can come in and play wide receiver out the gate. I don't want the first thing we say is, I don't know what he's going to play. He can play some running back. I don't want that guy.
Cordero Patterson vibes, definitely. And Jack Bech, I think, will get drafted higher. I agree with you. And I think he'll find his way on the field. Will we say the name Jack Bech in these next 24 picks? You're going to have to hold on and find out. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're drafting.
Rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Gimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies and use your favorite player profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
Welcome back to Dynasty Life. Theo Gremminger and Ray Garvin getting ready to start drafting. We're going to start out with our first round. I'm just going to make it quick. This is single QB. Let's go 1.5 point tight end premium to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
PPR. And let's say 4-point passing touchdowns for anybody scoring at home. We're going to go again, single QB. So anybody who's, doesn't like that format, we're actually going to cover a lot more by being a little bit less talky about these quarterbacks. So I'm going to get it out of the way. I'm going to take the 101. I'm going to take Ashton Jeanty. This is a very easy one for me. I think he's going to go inside the top 10 picks. I actually think he'll be selected before Dallas picks at the 112. We'll save your Dallas Cowboys from doing that. Ray, I know you're not a fan of that. But I think when it comes to Jeanty, I think when he gets this draft capital, he's going to be a first-round pick in redraft. And I think he'll be right behind the Jahmyr Gibbs Bijan tier in our dynasty startups this year. I think he'll settle in ahead of my guy Devon Achane. Jeanty, there's a ton to like there. Not really much to talk about, Ray. Great player. Now you're on the clock here. If you want to add anything on Jeanty, or we got that one.
He's the 101. I believe. I don't think it matters what the format is. You can go 3 QB, 2 QB, 8 tight end. It's Ashton Jeanty 101.
100%. Okay, so this is where it becomes interesting. You're at the 102. Ashton Jeanty is off the board. Ray, who you taking?
Yeah, if I'm sitting here at the 102 spot, I'm taking Tet McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. I think the class took a hit today, Theo, with the news that Travis Hunter is going to go to the combine as a cornerback, not a wide receiver. I've been on record for months saying that I thought he was a little better of a wide receiver than he was cornerback prospect. With him declaring or at least participating at the combine as a corner, I've got to adjust my tiers and get him out of there. So when I'm looking at the guys that I believe can profile and get the opportunity to be targeted or deployed as their team's number one wide receiver, I think there's one guy in this class, at least early on, who profiles that way to me, and that's 6'5", 210-pound Tet McMillan out of Arizona.
Yeah, and you've been on Tet McMillan for a long, long time, and I think the community sort of has got on that train this year. McMillan is a really interesting profile because we've got the 6'5", 210 plus frame, but also the potential to be like a 150 target guy at the NFL level. So it's a really, really exciting profile. I agree. He's my 102. 103, I'm going to take Omarion Hampton. And I know we talk about all of the running backs, the sort of the next four after Jeanty being super, super exciting. But for me, I think that Hampton has the combination of speed, size, pass catching ability, and I think the draft capital is going to be there. Set the record, had over 2,000 combined yards this year for UNC, and that's after they lost Drake May to the pros. So Hampton stepped up. And I love throwing this stat out. Shout out to Cody Carpentier. I gave him this stat as well. There's only 4 players in ACC history with back-to-back seasons of 1,500 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, Dalvin Cook, Travis Etienne, and Omarion Hampton. Pretty good list to be on, Ray. Your thoughts on Hampton? I know you love him.
Great. He is such a good player. Physical. I don't get there's some narratives being floated out there that he's like a complimentary back, like a one. I don't get that at all. Omarion Hampton would have been my pick here at 103 as well, but I'm up at 104 and I'm going to stick with the running back position. And I'm going to take a running back that I believe has a superpower. I always think about like, where are the elite running back? What is the superpower for this player? Is it speed? Is it size? Is it physicality? I don't know how many other guys compare to TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. I don't think that he's going to be a full-time running back, a bell cow. I think Omarion Hampton has that potential in his profile. Ashton Jeanty, Kaleb Johnson. I don't think you want TreVeyon Henderson doing that. I don't want him carrying the ball 25 times a game, but in the right system, in the right situation, his efficiency, the dynamism in the receiving game, and the speed, the elite juice. This is a highly touted top of the country prospect coming out of high school, and he didn't even play his senior year of high school, steps in as a freshman at Ohio State and dominates. 2 years, struggled through injury. They bring in Judkins. Let's get this guy some help, and then you see what happens when he's got a running mate next to him. I want him deployed and used exactly like Jahmyr Gibbs was used in Detroit. If there are some games where he's got to carry the ball 20 times, sure, he can get that done every now and then, but you want him a part of a tandem and a committee, and he can be explosive and dynamic.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before when we podcasted, Ray, about how, like, in today's day and age in the NFL, these high-value touch guys, these quote-unquote running back by committee, like TreVeyon Henderson could be 20th in running back touches, and we'd say that's fine. He can still give us top 12 running back production. Very strong as a receiver, had the highest yards per carry in like 6 years in the Big Ten. So he thrived in a shared backfield this year with another NFL player in Quinshon Judkins. I'm going to stay at the running back spot. And this one I could go back and forth on. I'm going to go Kaleb Johnson. I think Kaleb Johnson got the size. He's 6 foot. He's 220. Early breakout at Iowa. There's been some criticism that he was running through big holes. Well, that's not his fault. This guy had over 40% of Iowa's total offense this year. He had 22 receptions, which sounds low, but Iowa doesn't pass the ball at all. This is a guy who had 21 rushing touchdowns in the Big Ten, over 1,500 yards, and he had 10 games with over 100 rushing yards this year for Iowa. Kaleb Johnson, really exciting player, and if he lands well, I think he could steam up to the running back too.
Love him. I've got nothing to add. He's in that tier. He's in that tier behind Ashton Jeanty for me. Is he the draft day? He gets drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, and that's the only back they take. He might be the RB2 for me.
Okay, 106, Ray. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and I'm going to play this game that we have coined ADV over at DD Fantasy Football, artificial dynasty value. It's the hype and the steam and the hopium that fantasy gamers have with some of these players, and I do think that following the combine, we're already seeing this player mocked inside the top 10 of the NFL draft, and coming off of a season where we just had a record-breaking tight end, there will be people in tight end premium leagues. This is a 1.5 tight end premium mock we're doing, right? I'm taking Tyler Warren out of Penn State right here at the 106.
And I think this is appropriate because I think that when if he gets drafted inside the top 10 in like the high stakes FFPC leagues, people are going to take him ahead of one of these running backs. He might go the 104. He's not going to go where Brock Bowers went. I don't think that he's that clean of a prospect, but in terms of draft capital, that's going to be higher than Bowers. And the NFL is a copycat league. Even if we don't view Tyler Warren as the prospect of Brock Bowers, there's going to be NFL teams that are going to say, I'm going to use him in a similar way. Warren's big. He's strong. In his numbers, if you put him at a wide receiver in the Big Ten, we'd be going crazy over those numbers. So I'm completely with it. And remember, this is tight end premium. We might even say another tight end pretty soon here. So I'm back at the 107. I'm going to go back to the running back well. I'm going to kind of close out the kind of the Teflon tier of running backs. I'm going to take Quinshon Judkins. I think he's going to be a second-round pick in the NFL draft. This is a no-brainer player. This is sort of prospect fatigue. The people trying to pick holes at Quinshon Judkins' game. Had the most rushing yards by an SEC player ever, not named Herschel Walker. Had 3 straight years with over 12 rushing touchdowns at the highest possible college levels. Judkins has been ready to play in the NFL for a long time. No-brainer pick for me at the 107 and great value.
I mean, could he not be the RB2 in this class, Theo? I mean, what are we doing? If he were to, what do we want him to do? He stays at Ole Miss, gets beaten to hell, right? And puts up all those numbers. What happened this year was like best case scenario for him. He was able to display his talents on the biggest stage without getting worked to death, shared the backfield, ultimate team player, blocking everything. The one knock that people give Quinshon is his long home run speed. I challenge anybody out here looking and watching to just go to ESPN, Theo, and look at the long runs, the career long runs of Bijan Robinson, Ezekiel Elliott. That in the NFL, you're not ripping off 40, 50, 60, 70-yard runs on a consistent basis. He's got more than enough speed. I trust this kid. He's going to be a hell of a player at the next level. Good pick. And that is the break at the running back tier. So I think things get interesting really here at this pick, right?
Yeah, and your OTC, Ray, which way are you going to go?
Yeah, I'm going to Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Let's just stay in the state of Ohio. I'm taking wide receiver Emeka Egbuka with Hunter going to the combine as a cornerback. This pushes Emeka up for me personally as the wide receiver 2 in this class. He's a power slot. You talked about Judkins in the second or Ollie Gordon, that pairing in Pittsburgh at some point. I think Pittsburgh and Emeka Egbuka would be a perfect complement to the deep play, vertical stretch field ability of George Pickens. Let him play that power slot role. I've said it before. Anybody, he reminds me play style wise of Rashee Rice. And then we saw the deployment of Rice in Kansas City this year. You don't have to be a boundary X wide receiver to be a dominant force in fantasy football. Is Egbuka going to come in and command wide receiver 1 opportunity? I don't think so. But can he take a similar path that Jackson Smith and Jigba did? I do believe that. And if you were to ask me who the player I'm second most excited to see, it's Egbuka at the combine because I think he's going to test a lot better than people expect.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And there's a lot of Ohio State people talking about him athletically. He doesn't get that moniker because you hear the word like power slot. You don't necessarily think that this guy's going to be a great tester. But athletically, this is a guy who's continually had an incredibly high bar to cross in terms of teammate competition. And he left Ohio State as the leading receiver in school history. So big fan of Egbuka. I'm going to stay at the wide receiver spot, and I'm going to take a player who's a little polarizing in the community, Luther Burden. And again, I don't have to worry about draft capital because I think Luther Burden is going to be a lock first-round pick in the NFL draft. I have a 1,200-yard, 80-plus catch, 9-touchdown season in the SEC when he was a true sophomore. I have a 9-touchdown season when he was a freshman. People want to say that this is a gimmick guy. I don't necessarily think so. I think that was a indictment of Missouri's offense more so than Burden. I understand that there are some people not necessarily into the profile, and sort of Egbuka over Burden has been consensus, but I think NFL teams might not be there. I might get 8 spots of clearance in the NFL draft ahead. I think the Dallas Cowboys might take Luther Burden. Quick thoughts on Burden, Ray?
Yeah, he's a dynamic playmaker. I do think, and it's not a knock, and I don't think it's a detriment. You want him to play inside. That's what he did. I hate when teams and players try to fit a round peg into a square hole. Let Burden go do what he does well, which is dominate on the inside, give him two-way goes, and let him use his natural athleticism to make plays. I'd love to see him with C.J. Stroud in Houston, and I do think there's a world where he's the second wide receiver off of the board. So I'm not knocking it, and you've got a lot of value there. People love Luther Burden.
And let's go with the 110 here, Ray.
110, let's go running back out of SEC, Dylan Sampson. I am going to take a shot in the dark on Dylan Sampson. I know we have not seen him. No Senior Bowl, no Shrine Bowl. Well, that's because he's a younger player. Didn't have to go to those things. I think he's going to perform well at the combine, and I can see him being somewhere, I think round 3, round 4 pick. I like Dylan Sampson, and right now it's more so about identifying the names and the type of role that you can anticipate Sampson having. I don't think he's in that Omarion Hampton, Kaleb Johnson spot where he's going to come in and lead an offense, but can he get situational opportunity like Bucky Irving did during his rookie year, 40%, 35%, and perform well enough to get fantasy gamers excited about his potential, dynasty gamers excited about the future? I think the answer to that is unequivocally yes.
Every year we've been getting a low BMI running back who's come in and performed very well. Sampson's not going to be a big running back by any means, but he's a 1,500-yard runner, had production next to Jaylen Wright last year. It's also a popular thing to sort of hate all the Tennessee guys because of sort of the offense they run, but I'm with you. I think Sampson's going to get some steam. That's a guy that is a very interesting profile. I'll stay at the running back position here. And I could have gone tight end. I could have gone wide receiver, but I'm going to go with Ollie Gordon. This is a guy who I think has the steam. I think he's going to get the draft capital. I think he's a day 2 lock, which means to me if he tests well and somebody likes the profile, with the way this running back class is going to get pushed up by NFL teams, that could mean second-round draft capital for Ollie Gordon. He's also 21 years old, incredible college production. Ray talked about him earlier as sort of the guy that he thinks should have more steam right now, should be talked about more. Nothing really to add on Ollie because I know you like him, Ray.
Well, Theo, what happens? Just indulge me, right? He checks in at the combine. Say he drops a little weight. Say he comes in at 225, right? 6'1", 225, and he runs sub 4.5. I'm not saying he's a 4.3 or 4.4 flat, but it's 4.48, 4.49. That's speed score. People are going to, I don't think he's going to run slow. I don't believe that at all. I love Ollie, and I don't think it's going to take much for people to jump right back in on him.
Incredibly quick feet. Like, this is why I loved the Senior Bowl. I loved hanging out with you guys down there and watching these guys. Like, if I was watching this on TV, I wouldn't have seen every single running back drill. Like, Ollie Gordon was with a lot of backs who were 200-pound guys, some very fast guys. Devin Neal's a really fast guy. RJ Harvey's got speed. And Gordon's feet were just as quick as any of those guys. So I love this one. And shout out to our best ball drafters. And I know, Ray, you're in the underdog streets with Scott. I'm got too many underdog drafts right now. But Ollie Gordon's running back 49 on underdog. That might be the best value on underdog right now because if he gets drafted in the second round, he'll steam up 20 spots in terms of running back positional value. Ray, you're going to close out the first round, and then after I'm going to wrap it up, give a quick rundown of who we took in the first for our podcast listeners.
Well, let's go back to the tight end. Well, you saved him for me. I thought you were going to take him, but I'm going to take the guy that I have pegged as tight end 2 right now, Colston Loveland out of Michigan. Michigan was talked about how dumpster fire Oklahoma State was. I mean, Michigan legitimately did not have a quarterback. How do you go into a college football season with no QB? So when you look across the board, the numbers and the metrics aren't going to be great. That's why you got to turn on the tape. Situation and context matters. Alex Orji and Davis Warren were the quarterbacks. They are not on any NFL radar or XFL or CFL radar. This is going to be a player that is much better in the NFL. Sort of seems like a common theme from Michigan. A lot of players that are better in the NFL than they were at Michigan. You see Nico Collins. We're projecting that for JJ McCarthy to have this even higher elevated outcome. And I do think that Colston Loveland is next up. I would, in a tight end premium, I'll take him right here at the 112 spot.
Yeah, and I think if he goes inside the top 20, which I think he should, then the Luther Burden pick, the Dylan Sampson pick, the Ollie Gordon pick, like Loveland will go right around where we took Egbuka. It's interesting. It doesn't really matter at the tight end spot, but I think one interesting thing is Loveland is like 2.5 years younger than Tyler Warren, so there might be a little bit more room to run with the profile. Certainly, people. This is why you can't look at production stats in college. Situations are completely different. Loveland led Michigan in all categories this year, but the quarterback play was so bad that his stats were pretty low in terms of the overall counting stats compared to guys like Fannin Jr., compared to guys like Warren. But Loveland's an absolute stud. So let's give a quick recap for the first round. I started out the 101. I took Ashton Jeanty. Ray at the 102 took Tet McMillan. I took Omarion Hampton at the 103. Ray took TreVeyon Henderson, running back, Ohio State. At the 105, I took running back Kaleb Johnson of Iowa. Ray at the 106 took Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. At the 107, I took Quinshon Judkins, running back, Ohio State. Ray at the 108 took Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State. At the 109, I took Luther Burden, wide receiver from Missouri. At the 110, Ray took Dylan Sampson, running back from Tennessee. 111, I took Ollie Gordon, running back, Oklahoma State. And at the 112, Ray closed it out with Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. We're headed into the second round here. I'm going to get all queued up with my 201. And let's do it like, should we rerun it, Ray, or do you want to go back to back here? It's you're the guest. You pick.
Go ahead. We can go back to back.
Okay, so for me at the 201 here, I could go a number of ways. And we talk about guys who performed well in Mobile. One guy who we were very disappointed didn't show up, but I'm actually projecting to get top 40 NFL draft capital. And it's a player that I'm excited about as a wide receiver, Elic Ayomanor from Stanford. This has been sort of one of my guys. Some pushback I got from putting him projected in the first round, but I do think when you get down to the bottom half of the first round and you start looking at teams like Houston, start looking at teams like Washington, I'll throw the Buffalo Bills out as a team that could use another big-time pass catcher. These guys like Elic Ayomanor, and then I'll throw out also, spoiler alert, Matthew Golden, guys like that are going to be in that mix. So I think Ayomanor is actually going to have better draft capital than some people think. This is a player with size. He's got great athleticism, big-time production in certain games. He had arguably the catch of the year last year. And then also in 2023, we had the breakout game where he completely mossed Travis Hunter. He stepped up. It's just been another bad team situation. If Ayomanor would have gone to a higher profile school, I think there's a chance we would have already said his name.
I've mocked him in some of the mocks that I've done. I've mocked him 29th overall to the Washington Commanders. I believe I've mocked him one time to the Buffalo Bills as well in round 1. I've also mocked him consistently in round 2. And it was bigger than just that one catch versus Travis Hunter. Go watch that entire game. He had Hunter in a blender from the first snap to the end. I think he's a really good player. Wish he would have been in Mobile, but I like the pick here at the 201 spot. And to be quite honest with you, there's a lot of projection going on right here. Like as I look at the remaining players on the board, there's a lot of that going on. But you did invoke a name, and I'm glad you didn't take him because I'm going to take him right here. I believe that he will be a top 40 pick at worst. Let me be conservative. Top 40 pick in the draft at worst, and that is Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden. Wasn't a name that I think a lot of people, everyone was really excited about Isaiah Bond coming in. It was Bond, Golden transferring in from Houston. But as the season progressed, Bond got injured. You saw the rapport grow with Quinn Ewers. I think he's really good in downfield contested catch situations. He's got route fluidity. Hands are solid. I think he's a good complementary wide receiver at the next level. And depending on the landing spot, so you put him in LAC, I think it's an immediate upgrade over Quentin Johnston. And what it really does is frees up Ladd McConkey a little bit. But I like Golden. think he's a player that people will like. I see him as a nice wide receiver 3 at the next level.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think they're both in that wheelhouse where we talk about landing spot. There's a chance they both sneak into the first round. Just think about last year where you had Xavier Legette and Ricky Pearsall both sneaking into the end of the first round. Teams sort of position themselves. So I love that pick as well. I'm back here at the 203. I could go a number of ways. First of all, let me queue up my little 203 before I should have put these in order, Ray. Okay, so 203, we're ready to go. I'm going to go with Elijah Arroyo because I think it's time to start talking about tight end again. You're saying he could be a potential combine riser. I love the way he played down in Mobile. I had Harold Fannin as my tight end 3 heading into the Senior Bowl, and it sort of took a lot for me to have to push him down. But I'm going to say Elijah Arroyo, young player, explosive athlete, and I think he's going to land very well in the NFL draft. Top 35 draft capital with potential, I think, for the absolute nuts landing spot. Shout out to Brett Whitefield. He mocked Arroyo to Kansas City as the Travis Kelce replacement. I think that would get everybody a little bit excited.
Yeah, Brett and I, we are simpatico. I think 2 mocks ago, I had Arroyo going to Kansas City at the back of the first as well. I love the pick. You kind of sniped me on that one. I wanted to talk about Arroyo, but I did a little bit earlier, so you got your turn there. I like the pick. Right here, oh man, this is I think we're at a spot now where the point of the exercise, highlighting the names, given how we think that archetype of player could perform at the next level. This is another player I'm excited to see at the combine. I think he can rise. Jaylin Noel. I think that's the wide receiver out of Iowa State that I would prioritize, not Jaden Higgins. I think this kid is tailor-made for a slot role, precision timing offense at the next level. He's quick in and out of his breaks. Hands are okay. I saw him drop a few passes, but that's okay. The speed is evident. He is very good on the inside, very comfortable running those post routes, those deep over routes, really reminiscent, in my opinion, play style-wise, of Christian Kirk when he was coming out of Texas A&M. I love Jaylin Noel. I think he's going to be a very, very good slot receiver at the next level, so I'm taking him right here.
Yeah, and it's funny, Ray, I'm putting together my rankings for our rookie guide that comes out at the beginning of March, and right now I have Jaylin Noel at 16 overall in my single QB rankings. And what's funny is you don't see any impact from what he did in Mobile in like recent mock drafts, in rankings updates. It's like the community is sort of not taking into account that every time these guys go and dominate a Senior Bowl, NFL teams take notice and give them the draft capital. Jaylin Noel also had incredible college production. This is not just some guy who came out of nowhere and had, sort of enough college production, but then the Senior Bowl pushed him up. This is not a Roman Wilson last year where the college team's just not passing to him. Jaylin Noel had over 80 receptions. He had over 1,100 yards. I think that was a Scott Connors stat about all of his 50-plus yard touchdowns. So shout out to Scott on that. He's got big playability as well. So I love that pick. Jaylin Noel, really, really strong one. 205, I'll go with another guy that I think will get day 2 draft capital, Devin Neal. And this is one where Devin Neal didn't go to the Senior Bowl and just wow and amaze everyone, but he didn't hurt himself there. And one big win for him was, I thought he was going to be 210. He showed up and he was 220 at the Senior Bowl. And this is a player where there's some rumors, Ray, that he's going to light it up in the 40 at the combine. Like, Devin Neal has kind of insinuated that his 40 times going to be better than people think. I know he's working with some elite speed coaches right now. So I think Devin Neal might show up, run a great 40. He's very talented in the screen game. This is a player who had 3 straight seasons of 1,000-plus rushing yards, had big-time production, stayed at home, in-state, and just dominated. So I really like Devin Neal. He's sort of in this wheelhouse of this group of running backs where I think if he lands correctly, he's going to have a ton of dynasty enthusiasm.
Yeah, pick your flavor from this crop of running backs. He was also a dual sport collegiate athlete, which he talked about preparing him mentally, physically, different movement skills by playing baseball and football. Big fan of Devin Neal. Good pick here in the second round, Theo. I'm going to go back to tight end. I'm going back to the tight end position. Let me say this. I believe that Mason Taylor is a more complete tight end than Harold Fannin. I do. I think Harold Fannin is very much landing spot dependent. I watched him all week. He did not line up inline tight end, not one time. They had him playing that flex H-back role, or he was aligned as the fullback in the backfield. He's not a big tight end, but he can play in the receiving game. He is a pass-catching monster. He's fluid in his routes. Hands are good, and he's got good speed. So in this 1.5 tight end premium, I'm going to go to the Mac. Take Harold Fannin Jr. right here.
Okay, so Harold Fannin Jr. locked in at the 206?
Lock it in. Lock it in, Theo.
Yeah, people will love to hear that because I think this is one where Harold Fannin Jr. was just so good. And when you watch him in like the tape, like was able to just destroy the two best teams on his schedule, the Penn State game, the Texas A&M game. And I think that the Senior Bowl, like a lot of people are way too reactionary to day one, where I think it was a little bit quiet. Day two, day three, though, he made a number of big-time plays. So I think that Fannin Jr., there's going to be NFL teams who already really like the profile. And this is not a guy who just sort of had this incredible year. He also had over 1,000 yards, over 70 receptions in 2023 as well. Yep. Big fan of Fannin Jr. Mason Taylor also a really nice profile, too. This is a great tight end class. I'm back here at the 207. This is a tough one. There's a number of wide receivers that I could select here. You took Jaylin Noel. Like going back and forth, I think that there's this cluster of wide receivers that all are very, very appealing. But I think that the value here is actually going back to the running back position. And I'm going to take another player that I'm sort of on right now, and I think I'm ahead of some people on. And I'm going to take Damien Martinez out of Miami. 225-pound running back. He's a younger player, first Miami running back to run for over 1,000 yards in like 7 years. Had big-time production at Oregon State. We thought he was going to be 230. He showed up 225, but he's a very well-built 225. Better pass catcher than some people think. And I think when we look at like where Trey Benson settled in like the third round last year, to me, that's sort of Damien Martinez's wheelhouse. Damien Martinez gets day 2 draft capital. Damien Martinez will be a locked and loaded second-round pick in our dynasty rookie drafts.
I love the call, man. I don't think I've been a part of a mock where Martinez has gone this high, but I can totally see it coming out of Oregon State. Hell, I was proclaiming he was a top 5 back in this class at his final season at Oregon State. I'm like, this dude is incredible. No one's seen him play. So I like that pick. I like that call at 207. I'm up at 208. I think this is like the last big name value guy that if this player gets day 2 capital, even if it's late, he could be the last pick on day. It might even be better if he were the last pick on day 2, right? Just got that day 2 capital, last pick in round 3. Running back Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. I am undoubtedly lower than consensus on Skattebo. I think he's a fine player. I think he's an excellent receiver. That whole comment I made about being a running back that can catch passes versus a pass-catching weapon, I do believe that Skattebo can be deployed as a pass-catching weapon.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I don't think he's very big. I don't think he's very incredibly fast either. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, the 10-yard split, the 10-yard. There's been some work done that there's really no correlation between 10-yard split and fantasy success. But if he goes on day 2, he's got a cult following. And I do think he'll find a role on an NFL offense. That role is not lead back. I've seen some wild takes that he's like the RB2 in this class, should be a first-round pick. Stop it. Like, stop it. No, absolutely hell to the no. But I do think there's a world for in this game that we play fantasy football. If he gets, God, I don't even want to say it. I don't want to say it because I don't do lazy skin comparison comps. But if he gets this Rex Burkhead type role where he's the 4-minute back, trusted in those situations, I think Skattebo could find some success, man.
Yeah, no, I think that it's certainly, Scott's talked about this as well. Scott Connor, obviously one of the best like dynasty, like theory type guys out there. But he's talked about this last year, sort of when Braylon Allen was falling, he still wanted to have him because all it takes is the running back ahead of Cam Skattebo to go down, and you have an asset that people are going to really want to trade for. For me, this is one of the reasons I've been on Martinez. I just like Martinez more than Skattebo, and I think their steam should flip-flop. Skattebo, I've actually read some Arizona people where they read like the James Conner or the David Montgomery comps out there from people, and they're like, slow the roll a little bit because, like you said, he's not that big. He's more of a Swiss Army knife type. Is he a Tyler Algier at the next level where the situation presents himself and he gets 1,000 yards? Like, I get it. I think that this is sort of the way to approach it. That combine is going to be very important for him, though, Ray. He can't go out there and be slow. And he's got to also, like, if he's going to be on the slower side, he's got to be 220. So I think definitely an interesting one. 209 for me here. This is wide open. And I'll kind of go on your track here where this is a player where I'm not as high on him as everyone else, but I think that there is a group of people in the community that are head over heels on Tre Harris out of Ole Miss. I think when it comes to Tre Harris, he's going to get the draft capital that's necessary. I know that this is a big Jax Falcone guy. I know Shane Manila loves Tre Harris. I can see it, but I don't think it's as much of a slam dunk as some people think. I do think that he's also got a wider range on where he's actually drafted. Does he go ahead of guys like Ayomanor and Matthew Golden? I'm not sure about that, but I do think when I'm getting him here at the 209, this is great value for sort of a name brand wide receiver. And I can't discount the fact the guy played 8 games and had over 1,000 receiving yards in the SEC. So Tre Harris, also, I like that he went up and performed better. Was a Louisiana Tech guy, transfers up to Ole Miss, has that big time production. And we've seen this sort of profile where, not to throw the name out there, he's not Mingo, but Mingo, Xavier Legette, Tre Harris, these big SEC wide receivers all get that top 35, top 40 NFL draft capital. So I think Harris will get that as well. Your quick thoughts on Harris.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's a good player. I've mocked him as high as 44 to the Dallas Cowboys, and I've done mocks where he wasn't even in the second round. I think the range of outcome is very wide, but he was on pace to break every freaking SEC receiving record this season prior to being injured. I think he only played 9 games and still had over 1,000 yards. He was absolutely dominant, and people do love him. I don't hate him. I don't love him. I think he's fine. I think he's a nice complementary. If you need a big boundary wide receiver, he can go fulfill that role at the next level.
All right, so you are going to be up here at the 210. 3 more picks, Ray.
210. It's single QB. I'll just say this. This isn't the class, nor are there the quarterback prospects where I feel like it's really like the ROI is there in the second round for taking a QB. So I'm not going to do it. If Milroe had the type of steam that Jackson Dart does, I think he probably would have already been picked, even in a single quarterback, because of that upside. I just can't do it right here. So at 210, I'm going to take the player that I believe has one of the better chances. I'm not going to say the best, but a good chance of being the best pass catching deployment weapon in this class. And he also clocked in at 215 pounds. It's Woody Marks out of USC. I was not expecting him to be as put together as he was. 5'10", 215 pounds, over 260 career receptions. Are you kidding me? I mean, 160 career receptions? Are you kidding me? Man, this is a dude that in his first season being able to tote the rock full time, he had over 1,000 yards this year. I mean, 80 catches, 50 catches. This is a running back that can be deployed as a pass catching weapon. Move him out in the slot. Let him run option routes, Texas routes, choice routes. And if you've got to let him tote the rock between the tackles, he can do that. So I think Marks and what I believe he will do at the combine, this is one of those cats that you're sitting around and you're watching the draft and you're in round 3 and there've been a couple of tackles off the board. And then finally the team says we select Woody Marks out of USC. And you're just like, I thought he was a 6th, 7th round pick. Here he is at the end of round 3. So right here at the 210, give me the pass catching weapon, Woody Marks.
Yeah, and parallels between completely different player, but the Marshawn Lloyd route, where Marshawn Lloyd before the Senior Bowl, people were not necessarily sure about his draft capital. Lloyd had a year where he goes over 1,000 yards rushing at USC, transfers from the SEC. Marks transfers from the SEC, goes to USC, breaks out as a runner. The receiving is crazy, though, and he's a well put together running back. So, again, I do think there's a little bit of landing spot dependent there, but the skill set, Ray, it's there. 211 for me. This is wide open. I could go with a wide receiver like Jack Bech. I could go with about 7 running backs, but I've already drafted so many of them. I'm going to close it out. I'm going to go Jalen Royals. And I think this is still a wide receiver that NFL teams like. And he told me he was playing at 80% at the Senior Bowl. And if that's his 80%, then that was pretty good. You've had a G5 wide receiver that's been a day 2 selection in back-to-back drafts. Rashee Rice back in the good old days. Well, not necessarily the good old days, but the old days when SMU was not an ACC team. Rashee Rice goes on day 2. Then last year we had Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. I think Royals is going to be definitely somewhere in the middle of these two in terms of prospect. I think he's probably closer to Rice than Corley. Royals had big-time production in 2023, 15 touchdown catches. And then this year, the 2 games prior to him going down with a foot injury, he shredded UNLV, who had a pretty strong defense, and he shredded Boise State for 211 yards. We saw him in those one-on-one drills down in Mobile. Told me he patterns his game after like Deontay Johnson in a good way. And I can sort of see that in his pro profile. And this is a guy that I think NFL teams are going to value inside that second round, if not higher.
Yeah, Royals was one that I was very interested to see. And I didn't know that he was a little banged up in Mobile because he was there, but he didn't really stand out to me. Yeah. He wasn't bad. He wasn't bad by any stretch, but I think I wanted a little bit more, but I also wasn't privy to that information that he wasn't 100%. So
I'll send you the video, Ray. I'll send you the video. I got video on this one.
Hey, that's why you get paid the big bucks, Theo. That's why right. You get paid the big bucks, baby. So am I up here? Is this my last one?
Close it out, Ray.
All right, let me just throw names out there that I'm not going to take. I want to take Brashard Smith, but I've taken like 35 running backs, so I can't do that. I love LeJontay Wester out of Colorado. I think his landing spot could definitely impact his draft capital. And Tess Johnson, I want to talk about him from Mobile because he's a separation specialist, but the player that I think, not just day 2 capital, I think this wide receiver could go into round 1, and I think there are a couple of spots that would fit very nicely. But Jack Bech is the guy. And a lot of people don't remember, but when he came into LSU, he came in as a tight end. And that was a byproduct of the fact that they had Malik Neighbors, Kayshon Boutte, and Brian Thomas on that field. As a freshman on a bad LSU team, he led them in receiving with those other names on the field. Neighbors, Thomas, it was Jack Bech who led them in receiving. Goes to TCU. It's a Big 12. No one gives a crap about TCU. But quietly been very good over the past 2 years. He is the type of wide receiver that will be very active and physical in the blocking game. He's good after the catch. He's going to be where the coach wants him to be when he needs to be there. Therefore, there will be opportunity. Doesn't matter how much talent you have. If you're not in the right spot, if you can't catch the ball, if you don't execute your assignment 100% of the time, you don't play in the NFL, no matter how talented you are. I think this player's combination of work ethic, his profile and pedigree, along with my projected draft capital of him, is going to make Jack Bech a very interesting fantasy football prospect that we're going to draft in our rookie drafts.
Yeah, and I think this is more appropriate. Like, I know that I've talked about with you, I've talked to Brett Whitefield about this, but like, just like with Jaylin Noel, Jack Bech did this all 3 days in Mobile, obviously played well in the game, which doesn't matter as much as the practices. But Jack Bech was an easy guy to root for, had the off-field tragedy, but the production was there, and he looks the part too. Like the guy is a big, strong wide receiver, more so than just some slot guy. He can play inside, he can play outside, and literally catches everything. A big fan of Jack Bech. I'm just going to wrap up our second round. At the 201, I took Elic Ayomanor, wide receiver, Stanford. At the 202, Ray took Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. 203, I took Elijah Arroyo, tight end from Miami. At the 204, Ray took Jaylin Noel, wide receiver out of Iowa State. At the 205, I took Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. At the 206, Ray took Harold Fannin Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green. At the 207, I took Damien Martinez, running back Miami. 208, Ray took Cam Skattebo, running back Arizona State. Comped him to Rex Burkhead afterwards. And the 209, I took Tre Harris, a wide receiver, Ole Miss. Ray at the 210 took Woody Marks, running back, USC. The 211, I took Jalen Royals, wide receiver, Utah State. And at the 212, Ray took Jack Bech, wide receiver, TCU. And a note for everyone, I've done 2 single QB rookie mock drafts one with Cody Carpentier, one with Ray Garvin. And in both of these drafts, not a quarterback was selected, just to give you an idea about the quality of the quarterback class in single QB. Ray, this was awesome having you on. You crush it with everything you do. Let everybody know once again where they can find your work.
Appreciate it, Theo. Let's make sure we do this again, and it doesn't take like 8 months to schedule it. So let's do this again, my friend. Appreciate everybody tapping in. You can find my content on YouTube, Ray Garvin NFL, DD Fantasy Football, or type in DDFFB. Get at me at RayGQue on X. And as always, trust the Trinity, ddfantasyfootball.com, baby.
Yeah, highly recommend it. All the stuff you guys do is awesome. And stick with us here at Dynasty Life. If you like shows like this, we're going to be getting you ready to crush all of your Dynasty leagues, getting you ready for the NFL draft, getting you ready for the Combine as well. My next guest will be Thor Nystrom. Make sure you want to watch that one.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.